The GH6 or the GH7, is the colour science better or just different? When Panasonic released the GH6, many including myself declared it as an improvement in colour science over previous models. The footage looked pleasing straight out of the camera, and there was a general sense that Panasonic had refined something significant in how the cameras rendered colour and tone. I was fully on board with that belief. However, now that I've spent considerable time comparing the GH6 to both the newer GH7 and the older BGH1, I've started to reevaluate that opinion. This reflection isn't based on specifications or assumptions, it's based on practical testing. I shot each of the three cameras using their best internal recording settings: ProRes RAW HQ for the GH7, ProRes HQ for the GH6, and 10-bit All Intra for the BGH1. Each camera was exposed for its native ISO, and for the GH6, using dynamic range boost, that meant 2000 ISO. I didn't adjust camera settings like aperture or shutter speed. Instead, I modified the lighting source to achieve proper exposure on each sensor. In post-production, I applied the same grading process for each camera. This included a V-Log to Rec.709 Color Space Transform, Apple Final Cut Pro's Enhanced Light and Colour adjustment, which I found reliable for quick balancing, and one of my own film emulation LUTs. The aim wasn't to make the footage look cinematic through grading tricks. It was to see how each camera's sensor and internal processing responded to the same treatment. Before getting into the results, it's worth addressing where we're coming from. The GH5 wireless-capable camera developed a reputation among many users for what I often described as the lobster look, particularly when shooting in V-Log-L. Skin tones could lean towards orange, and I did find myself avoiding V-Log on that camera altogether, opting instead for the natural profile. With the release of the GH5S and later the BGH1, Panasonic seemed to correct some of these issues. They introduced a slight magenta shift that improved skin tone handling, and with the BGH1 in particular, it offered a little more dynamic range, especially in highlight roll-off. When the GH6 arrived, it immediately stood out. Despite not having an optical low-pass filter, the image appeared softer, more filmic, at least in terms of texture. The GH6 did have superior colour science. Its image straight out of camera looked flattering, the skin tones appeared smoother, and there was a perceived shift towards a more cinematic feel. But now, having viewed it side by side with the GH7 and the BGH1 using control tests and consistent grading, I've begun to question whether what I once called better was simply different. The GH7 on paper is a significant upgrade. It introduced phase detect autofocus, 32-bit flow audio, real-time LUT preview, and full ProRes RAW support. In practice, I found it to produce a very clean and detailed image, especially when recording in ProRes RAW HQ. One thing worth noting is that autofocus on the GH6 appears to be non-functional when shooting in ProRes HQ. In contrast, the GH7's autofocus works flawlessly even when recording at its highest quality RAW. One thing that's worth noting is that autofocus on the GH7 appears to be non-functional when shooting in ProRes HQ. In contrast, the GH7's autofocus works flawlessly even when recording at its highest quality RAW setting. Another nuance that's easy to overlook is how Mac OS handles ProRes RAW previews. If you're browsing GH7 footage using Finder or QuickLook, Mac OS automatically applies a Rec.709 LUT to the preview. From my own tests, I don't find the GH7 to be overly clinical or digital looking as some have claimed, nor do I believe the GH7 is objectively more cinematic. In fact, if I ignore the background exposure difference caused by ISO variances, I actually find the GH7's colour appears a bit richer and more contrasty. That could be due to the RAW format, but the overall feel of the image is one I've started to prefer. The GH7 still delivers a solid image, but it doesn't strike me as a major leap forward from the GH5. If anything, I argue that the GH7 as a package feels like the bigger evolution. The BGH1 continues to impress as well. Even though it lacks the high resolution modes of the GH6 and the GH7 recording only up to Cinema 4K, it still produces an image that, when graded, holds up just as well. It's consistent, it grades beautifully, and it doesn't feel all that far behind despite being older and lower in resolution. So where do I land after all this? Simply put, none of these cameras are overly better or worse in an absolute sense. The GH6, GH7 and BGH1 each offer a slightly different flavour. The GH6 gives you a flattering image with minimal effort. The GH7 offers flexibility, precision and features that make it more appealing to me the more I use it. The BGH1 remains rock solid for consistent professional work. I used to say the GH7 had better colour, now I say it's just a different look. And as I keep working with the GH7, I found myself preferring its clean, neutral starting point more and more. Ultimately, I think the GH7 may be the most balanced of the three, quietly pushing things forward while still giving you the tools to shape the image in your own way. Thanks for watching.